I'm just going to share for about 10, 15 minutes, is how do we as a church take on the nations? How do we disciple nations? How do we actually do that? You have to know, I have to know, what does God want? Does he have a plan for us to make a difference? How can we change our city? Let's start there. And I believe we can say disciple nations, and we start with our city. We can start with our region. God's already given us that mantle to start with our region. You know that. How do we do that? How do we disciple? How do we get engaged? How do we do that? So I want to share with you, go to Isaiah 42. Would you do that, please? Go to Isaiah 42. Just going to share very quickly. Verse 6. Are you there? I am the Lord, I've called you in righteousness. I will take you by the hand and keep you. I will give you as a covenant for the people, a light for the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prison those who sit in darkness. And he goes on to say, I'm the Lord, I can do this, that's my name. And by the way, my glory, I don't share it. I give to no other, nor my praise to carved idols. And Rosemary mentioned this passage in a different. Behold, the former things have come to pass, and new things I now declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. Can I tell you this morning, God's got some stuff for us to do. God's got some new things for you to do. And you're going to have to get ready to say, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with the new. I'm going to go with the new. I'm not going to stay with what I've been doing. I'm not going to continue to look to the past. Interestingly enough, a lot of people judge where their future is going by their past. They go, I did that in the past, I'm looking to do it again. Don't do that, that's stupid. Really. You might have had some good things in the past. I'm not saying bad. There were a lot of good things in the past. You're going, oh, I want to do them again. That's a trap. Do you understand? That's a trap, looking back at your past, saying, those were so good, I want to do them again. That's a trap. Because God's not a God that says, I take old things and I kind of redo them. God says, I do new things. And for you to vision to try to do the old again, most likely, unless there's a specific hand of God bringing life to that thing again, it's probably not going to be what he's going to. You got to be prepared that there's a new thing. And you got to get ready to step into it. You know what happened to me? When we went on Ken on Track, I was terrified. I was terrified. I don't know what's going on with this. I've never stepped into national events. The biggest we've done is Niagara Now, which was big, but I've never stepped into the national circle where we would do things on that level. I was really scared. Just being honest. I was, my stomach was a little tight, and, I was nervous. And then when we went to go, I'm excited about going, but I'm also really nervous. I really don't know Mark and Kawana that well. I don't know what their expectations are. I don't, what are they looking for? I was nervous. But I said to Rosemary, I need God to do something to me because I'm never going to say no to a new thing because I'm nervous. I said that. I need God to help me with some stuff because I shouldn't be nervous like that because that's not good in the stomach. It's not, but I was. But I was nervous, but I said, God, I want to step into new things. I want to go into new places. I want to be a part of what you're doing. But I don't want to be scared to do it that badly either. But I want to tell you something. If you are not ready to go new things, you will go to your grave without accomplishing the things God wants for you to accomplish. And that might be because you said, I'm scared. I'm nervous. Embrace it. And a couple of years ago when God gave me this passage from Isaiah 42, verse 6, it said, I am the Lord, I've called you by name. I give you as a covenant for the people, a light for the nations. That's for all of us. We carry that same mantle. Jesus took that mantle. Where he's in us, we have that same light for the nations. We carry the same mantle. You carry it. But most people go, I'm too nervous. I can't do this, or I haven't got the time. Don't do that. Get into the new thing. And he's telling you in advance, get ready for it. Get ready, Randy. There's new things coming. Jana, get ready. There's new things coming. Not the old anymore, Mary. It's the new things. Honestly, God's got stuff for us that we've never done before. He says, you can't even perceive what I'm going to do. But as long as you have a spirit that says, I'm going into those things, even if you're scared. You may go, well, how can I change a nation? How can we, dwelling place, change a nation? God's doing something these days. And if you'll be a part of it, you will get into this. And you're saying, well, how do I do it? Well, God's got a strategy. I want you to see it. Verse 10. When I was given this passage, I looked at it. I stopped at verse 9. I didn't read this until Bill Johnson highlighted this in a message. And I went, oh, my goodness. God, you've given us a strategy for nations, a strategy for people. And when you come up against things, what do? When a city's got strongholds, how do you change that? We got to Winnipeg, and as I began to hear, we heard people's prayers. They have gang problems. Come on, in Winnipeg, gangs and murders because of these gangs. This is a concern for the city. They said it's 750,000. They got gangs, and you see it in the news often, gang murders and gang crime. And how do you change that? How do you stop that? Well, you maybe try to fund more police, send in. Does God have a plan? Even put it on a personal level. What about your family? What about when you've got an uncle who's an alcoholic, or you have a cousin who's a drug addict or something, or you've got somebody who's in a marriage that's just falling apart? Or how do you change circumstances when they're just like... And I read this and I thought, wow, God, you have a plan. I've read this before, but let's read it again. Verse 10. Sing to the Lord a new song, his praise from the end of the earth. You who go down to the sea and all that fills it, the coastlands and their inhabitants. In other words, sea to sea. Isn't that cool? Let the desert and its cities lift up their voice. The villages that Kedar inhabits. Let the inhabitants of Selah sing for joy. Let them shout from the top of the mountains. Let them give glory to the Lord and declare his praise in the coastlands. Now, verse 13, here's where it comes. The Lord responds. It isn't the word respond, but the Lord goes out like a mighty man, like a man of war. He stirs up his zeal like a warrior, John. And he cries out and he shouts aloud and he shows himself mighty against his foes. Then it goes on to say, for a long time I've held my peace. I didn't cry out, but I will now. And he goes on to say what he's going to do. I'll lay waste mountains. I'll dry up, he goes on to say what he'll do. Then he goes on to, in verse 16, I will lead the blind in a way they do not know, in paths they've not known. I will guide them. I will turn the darkness before them into light. Now watch this, the rough places into level grounds. Then he says, these are the things I do, and I do not forsake them. I read that. When Bill highlighted that verse quite some time ago, it stuck with me because I realized something. I have a feeling sometimes we're trying to do things that God's supposed to do, and we're not doing the things we're supposed to do. You see, when people talk about nations and changing cities, you often see them go out, take a flag and walk down the street, take a banner and curse the darkness or whatever, or try, and those things have minimal, I think, effect. And we do the things that really maybe have minimal effect, and the things we need to do, we don't do. And what I saw here is that if we do what we're supposed to do, then God gets up like a mighty warrior, and he goes and does the things that we are wanting done. But we have to understand what's ours to do, what's God's to do. And until we do that, I don't think we're going to change nations. I don't think we're going to change cities. I don't think we're going to change Niagara Falls until we learn some things. It's like we're so prone to want to work that we think I can work and I think I can do something real hard and change the city. But the Lord's plan is different. Not that you don't do those things, but there's an order to what God has. Verse 10, sing to the Lord a new song. His praise from the end of the church. It's time to wake up to the new song. It's time to wake up to the new song of heaven. And the new song of heaven is he's a good father. The new song of heaven is he loves you. The new song of heaven says he's going to restore you. The new song of heaven says a wave of grace coming. The new song of heaven says I've got new things. The church has to wake up to life and has to begin to move in the power of God. I'm telling you, you need to sing that new song. Look at the deserts and the cities, lift up their voices, shout for joy. Give glory to God. There's something when the church stands up and begins to worship. The church stands up, locks into heaven, because heaven's got, listen, what God's doing in heaven is a new song, and he wants to release that on earth. And it's not necessarily a worship song in that way, but it's the sound of heaven. It's the song. It's the heartbeat of heaven. When you pick that up and you begin to breathe it, you begin to live in it. I'm telling you something. Then you begin to touch God's heart. He gets excited, and he stands up and says, all right, you've now done something. I have no idea how this can happen, Joseph. My praise makes God get excited. My worship gets God excited. My going after God gets him excited. The church, when it rises and goes after God, gets him excited. So much so, I don't know why. He says, I held my peace for a long time. I don't know if our lack of it actually restrains him. I don't know. But when we get loosened to the song of heaven, I think it's because we come in agreement with heaven. And when we come in agreement with heaven and we begin to sing his heart, his song, and we live it out, he goes, okay, I'm ready. And then he goes out and he ends abortion. He goes out and he does what we look at. He says, I will level. Did you see it? He said, I will turn darkness and the rough places into level ground. The things that we struggle with, he says, I will do. And then he goes on to say, these are the things I do. But our lack of giving him praise, our lack of the church rising. Church, how many came excited this morning for God to do signs and wonders? Or did you go, it's Sunday, I should go? I hope you didn't do that, because that's not the sound of heaven. That's religion. If you didn't get up this morning and go, I'm excited to get into the house of God and be planted firmly in the house of God and see what God's going to do today and be a part of it, then you're not singing the song of heaven. You're still in the old religion. And that doesn't get God excited. He goes back to bed. He doesn't even show up. But if you look at our city, and you look at our nation, and you look at the world and the troubles that we have in the world, if the church will get a hold of Isaiah 42, these verses, and realize that God's calling us to get in line with the song of heaven and begin to give glory to him, transform our lives, he says, I will do the very things you're trying to do. I will rise up like a mighty warrior. God, give me grace to declare that, to articulate this. Do you understand that? When we do what we're supposed to do, become who we're supposed to be, God responds to that, and he stands up as a warrior. But it's in us to do that. It's like we need to be rising as the church. Every city, look at that. He calls those on the coast, he says the coastlines and their inhabitants, the desert, the cities, every villages, he names them all. Sea to sea. Can you imagine if our country got up and began to declare the glory of God and began to change and be transformed? You know, on the Sunday morning in Calvary Temple, it's a large church, and we just showed up in the morning because Canada on Track wasn't on schedule for the morning service, but the pastor, of course, knows us. So we were sitting back about 5 rows back, and he comes up to me about partway during the ministry time, and he said, I didn't see you guys here till now. Come up and pray. So I came up and prayed, and, they have a service that's a little more structured than ours, and so their time is of the essence. But I just said, God, just come. And I welcomed him to that house, and as soon as I began to, touch the song of heaven in my prayer, people in the sanctuary, hey, they started to just light up. You could hear their response, Later at lunch, we went for lunch, and my brother was there. The pastor said to my brother, yeah, he prayed revival this place today. I prayed for a minute and a half, maybe, because I was conscious of the time restraints, but very much felt the Lord in that moment. See, if we'll sing the song of heaven, people respond, so does God. Come on. It's time. Do not become weary in well-doing. Do not let yourself get lazy. Do not give up your praise, your adoration to the Lord. That new song that begins to be released in our lives will ascend to the heavens. God will hear it, and it will activate him. I don't know how or why, but it will. He says, I will go like a mighty man, a man of war, John, and it will stir up his zeal, and he'll cry aloud. He will show himself mighty against the foes. What are the foes? Abortion. What are the foes? All the nonsense that children today have to face. All this stuff, the Lord will go against it. You can go on the street and you can go ahead and you can say this is not right. People will laugh at you. They'll mock you. But we can change the atmosphere by getting God's attention, by being the church, by being the people of God. He will rise up and he will be mighty on our behalf. I'm telling you. We need to do this. We need that. I believe that's the key. That doesn't mean we don't go out and do these things. That doesn't mean we don't go stand on Parliament Hill like we did. That doesn't mean we don't go protest at some points. But we don't do that without this. We don't do that without this. Problem is we think we are. I think sometimes, I close with this, we think that a 10-minute prayer was the prayer we needed to shout aloud. I believe God's calling for a transformation, a lifetime. The church needs to become the song of heaven on earth. And then when the church becomes a song of heaven on earth, not for a 10-minute prayer before we go on the streets. We need to become the song of heaven. Are you with me? Stand to your feet.